Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special episode of Past Pirate Pay, the movie discussion show. My name is Ken. I'm your host alongside my co-host, Andy.
Hello there.
Hello, Andy. Today is, as I said, a very special episode.
Oh, please explain, Ken.
We are going to be debuting a brand new segment on the show, which is called Better Than Gigli. Wherein not you're saving yourself from this one.
I am. I'm not doing anything except listening.
Yeah, you don't
and
have to worry
asking
about
questions.
this one. But I will be watching selections from the 100 worst movies of all time, as selected by Rotten Tomatoes. And the segment is called Better Than Gigli because Gigli is the worst movie that I have ever seen. I saw that movie in the theater in 2003. And as I walked out of the theater, I said, that's the worst movie I've ever seen. And in the intervening 21 years, I have not seen anything that has made me change my mind.
Nothing's topped that, huh?
Nothing.
Wow.
So we've got the bottom 100 according to Rotten Tomatoes, and we're going to see if we can find something that is in some way better or worse than Gigli.
Yeah. And it's a 100-part series.
And that's right. This is episode 1 of our 100-part series. But so because we're doing the Better Than Gigli section, instead of our usual trio of themed movies, we're only doing 2 themers. So we asked our friend Mark, say, hey, Mark, come up with 2 movies that are in some way connected. And he just spat out 2 movies. So today's other 2 selections. Oh, the Better Than Gigli selection is the number 100 movie on the worst 100 movies of all time, which is M. Night Shyamalan's The Last Airbender.
And that's what we're doing.
And then our other 2 movies will be 1994's Chungking Express and 2023's Past Lives, which is a duo of movies about lost love starring Asian people, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what we're gonna be doing. So let's jump right into it. Let's get into the first Better Than Gigli segment.
All right. So, but first our theme. All right, so here it is.
So as I said, Gigli is the worst movie that I've ever seen. And the way we're going to be, in addition to our regular Past Pirate Pay system for this recurring segment, because we are still going to be ranking them Past Pirate or Pay, or I'm going to be.
We should, yeah.
You know, who knows? I'm assuming many of them are going to be Pass, but you never know. Sometimes critics get things wrong.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, I've come up with a 3-part ranking system. I'm gonna rank these movies on a scale from 1 to 10 in 3 different categories. And those categories are going to be disrespect for the audience's intelligence.
Okay.
Because Gigli is, I don't know if you know this, it's about a hit woman whose heart is warmed by a person with a mental disability.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. The next category is misuse of resources, both financial and human.
Okay.
Gigli cost $54 million to make, stars Ben Affleck, Jennifer Lopez, Al Pacino, and Christopher Walken.
That's quite a cast.
That's right. So misspent resources. And the final category will be unpleasantness of viewing experience. Gigli is the first movie I ever saw that prompted me to write a movie review after it was over.
Oh,
and
wow.
In that review,
It started your career.
That's right. In that review, I said that had I walked out of the theater and seen Jennifer Lopez standing there naked asking me to have sex with her, I would have shoved her down a flight of stairs. At one point in the theater, in a crowded theater in New York City, the movie took so long to get over with that I actually shouted out, "Good God," in the middle of the theater because the movie refused to end. It was a very, very painful experience. So with these 3 categories, I'm going to be scoring each movie I watch on a scale from 1 to 10, and level 9 will be the Gigli level.
So that's
for
a
all
control kind of?
That's exactly right.
All right.
It seems impossible to me that any movie can ever get a 10 if Gigli is only a 9 in these categories.
But it's got categories.
Exactly. So
it could rank.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Exactly. So Gigli is earning a score of 27, 9 times 3 on our 3-part scale.
Okay.
So in the course of this 100 movie series, we're going to find out if any movie can top a score of 27 and become worse than Gigli.
All right. Sounds fair.
All right, so let's get right into it. We're going to 2010 and the director M. Night Shyamalan's The Last Airbender.
All right.
I should start off by saying that this movie is based on an animated series called Avatar: The Last Airbender. This series is very well regarded. It has a lot of very serious fans. Have you ever watched the show?
Never have. I don't like anime.
Yeah, I have never seen the show either, and I know nothing about it.
Okay.
So if you're a fan of the show and you're listening to this and you're wondering why I'm not talking more about it, it's because I don't know anything about it. I'm only interested in the movie, and boy, is this movie something.
Yeah.
It's quite unbelievable. So as the number 100 movie out of the 100 worst movies, so this is the best of the worst,
right,
on our list.
Right.
It has a 4% score on Rotten Tomatoes. 4%. And I would be lying if I said I didn't understand why that was. This is a Nickelodeon Studios production, and it feels like it was a half-hour episode of a Nickelodeon television show from 1991 stretched out into film length.
Oh, wow.
The production values are terrible, even though I looked it up, and this movie cost $150 million to make.
Oh.
It looks awful.
Somebody's pocketing some money.
Really, really bad. The acting, many of the main characters are kids, and they're all terrible. You think of child actors as being like wooden and not really able to handle big emotions. And these kids are universally that way.
Oh, okay.
Just spectacularly bad. Every piece of dialogue in this movie, all the characters ever do is just speak in exposition. They're just explaining what's happening with the plot as it's going on.
Okay.
That's all. That's the entire dialogue of the whole movie. The sets look so obviously fake. Like whenever characters are interacting with background, it just looks like cardboard that has been constructed 1 hour before the movie. Like this is a bad movie. This is a ineptly made movie. And I'm going to get into right now the theory I have as to why that is.
Okay.
Around this time, I developed an M. Night Shyamalan theory, and I'm very excited to share it with our audience at this time.
Okay.
Have you ever seen The Village, the M. Night Shyamalan movie? Okay. When I saw that movie,
I kind of liked it.
I really like it. It's one of my favorite M. Night Shyamalan movies.
Okay.
While I was watching that movie, this is going to contain a mild spoiler or I guess a pretty big spoiler for The Village, but the movie's very old, so I'm not too worried about it. While I was watching that movie, I was thinking to myself, the dialogue in this movie is really terrible. The characters are all speaking in this old-timey language, but it seems like it was written by someone who has no idea what old-timey people would actually have spoken like.
Just guessing.
Right.
Yeah.
And then when the big M. Night Shyamalan twist comes from the movie, you realize that the film is actually taking place in present day.
So the dialogue makes sense.
And it makes sense.
Yeah.
And I was immediately thinking to myself, wow, he wrote incredibly good bad dialogue. Like he's really good at intentionally writing bad dialogue.
Yeah.
And then after that, M. Night Shyamalan made a trio of movies. He made The Happening. He made The Last Airbender, and he made After Earth. And those movies are spectacularly bad.
Yeah, they are.
Very, very bad. But I think M. Night Shyamalan is doing this on purpose.
Yeah.
M. Night Shyamalan went through...
You think there's going to be a twist later or something?
No. I think M. Night Shyamalan went through what I would like to call his Andy Kaufman period. The man only wants to fuck with his audience.
Oh, boy.
And there are clues scattered throughout these movies. In The Happening, there's a scene. The Happening, the plot is people will start killing themselves for no reason.
Right.
But it's not just like they pick up a gun and blow their brains out. Like they come up with ridiculous and elaborate ways to kill themselves. Like
they get very creative, yeah.
At one point, a guy jumps into a lion habitat at the zoo and like slaps a lion in the face. There's another one where a guy takes a riding lawnmower, he's riding it, and then he gets off of it, turns the wheel so that the mower is spinning around in a circle and then just lays down so that the mower will run over him. Like, this is hilarious stuff. This is really funny, good stuff. And then in The Last Airbender, the ultimate bad guy in the movie is played by Asif Mandvi, who at the time was a Daily Show correspondent and known for nothing else. And I don't think he's really done anything other than The Last Airbender and being on the Daily Show since then.
I might have done other little things here and there, but
yeah, I certainly can't recall ever having seen him. But like, why on earth would you pick this guy to be the heavy in your movie unless you want to signal that you're joking? It's the only thing that makes sense. And Asif Mandvi is reading all of his lines as though he were still a Daily Show correspondent. Like, he's speaking like this whenever he is making a point in any kind of dialogue. Like, it's crazy. It's why would you make a movie like this unless you were trying to fuck with people? It's the only thing that makes sense. It's a kung fu movie, basically. There's a lot of martial arts going on, except the movie's called The Last Airbender because the main kid is an airbender. He can move the air with by waving his hands around. He like pushes the air out at people.
Okay.
And there are other benders in the movie. There are water benders and fire benders and land benders.
Okay.
And the way that the people move them is by like doing Tai Chi, basically. So it's a martial arts movie, except while the people are fighting each other, they're just doing martial arts at the air. Like, people are just doing spin kicks to shoot
and then the
fire.
CG is doing everything else.
Yeah, like somebody'll do like a crane kick, and then a candle will shoot fire at their enemy while that's happening. Like, it's totally ridiculous. And I guess I'm guessing that this is a really silly version of the thing that is done in the series. But boy, it is so silly. Like, the movie starts with a narrator explaining these things about the benders. And while that's happening, they're showing one of each of the benders doing their little Tai Chi routine and shooting water at the screen as it's happening. Like, it's coming directly at the camera. There's some water flying and some fire flying. And it's just like, there's no one who could have seen this movie and thought, boy, that looks good. I'm really happy about this. Like, the way that these land benders are moving these rocks around, that looks really cool. I'm really happy about that. It's just, it can't possibly have happened. So the only thing that makes sense to me is that M. Night Shyamalan, I think I remember when I saw The Village, people were not happy about it. I think people thought that the twist was stupid.
I remember predicting the twist from the trailer.
Oh, interesting. It didn't occur to me. I was just totally into it. And prior to that, Signs, I think people were really upset by the twist in Signs also.
Oh, I love Signs.
I love Signs too. I think it's great. I think the ending is silly, but the movie on the whole is great. It's really good. And I feel the same way about The Village. I think
I really don't
good.
think that Signs really had a twist.
Yeah, okay, but the ending
had a little bit of it had an ending, but it didn't you didn't rethink the way you thought about the movie.
Yeah,
you know, like
I remember hearing people being upset about those movies. About the ending specifically to those movies, and the prevailing opinion seemed to be like, boy, I'm getting sick of this M. Night Shyamalan shit. I'm just sick of his shtick. And I think that he heard those criticisms and he's like, well, you know what? Fuck you. I'm going to go off and I'm going to show you how bad it can get. And he just took this money and he made these fucking unbelievable pieces of shit. And like, there's no other explanation that makes sense to me because since then, he's started making movies that are better again. Like, I think Split was a very good movie.
I thought it was okay.
I thought it was excellent. I really enjoyed it. And
did you see the new one?
Trap.
Yeah.
I thought is not a great movie, but I thought, like, you can watch his movies and think that the man obviously knows how to build suspense and create scenes of tension, and he can't just have forgotten that, right? Like, he wasn't suffering from a head injury for 5 years while he made these terrible movies.
Right.
He has to have been doing it on purpose. So that is what I think.
Those were bad.
Really bad. Those are 3 very bad movies. The Happening, I think, is actually an excellent comedy. I think if you go into that movie and just watch it thinking that you're going to laugh at it, I think it works really well.
I remember when when they revealed at the end, they go, "It's the air.
The
air is the bad guy." And I'm like, "Oh Jesus, the air."
That movie is.
And they were running away from like breezy trees and shit.
Yep. Yeah. And Mark Wahlberg is a scientist. It's just like the whole thing is so stupid. It's just like, so yeah, that's what I think. The problem I think with this movie is that it doesn't really work that well as a joke. The Happening, I think, works well as a joke because the death scenes are funny. The Last Airbender, it seems like a prank that is only funny to the person playing the prank. Okay. I, as the audience member who is being pranked, did not find it to be especially bad.
I know, if I remember right, he really pissed off the fan base.
Oh yeah, people who love the series were up in arms that this thing exists. Like it's very clear from the ending of this movie that it's supposed to be a series of movies, but that was just never going to happen. The people who they claim the series, this intellectual property, they're just like, you can't let this guy anywhere near. And I think they made another animated series after this movie. They they redid it again just to like get the Shyamalan taste out of their mouths.
Okay.
But yeah, that's my real problem with this movie. I just wish that the joke were funnier to anyone other than M. Night Shyamalan. The other very strange thing is a young Dev Patel is in this movie.
Okay.
And
this was before Slumdog?
Yeah. Ooh, actually, I don't remember what year Slumdog. It's probably right around the same time.
Okay.
But I didn't know who Dev Patel was when I saw this movie. So when I watched it just now for the second time, I was very shocked to see him there.
Okay.
And he had not yet learned to act. Is my critique of that one. He's not the Dev Patel we've come to know and love in this movie, because I like Dev Patel. I think he's a good actor. Yeah. This movie, no, it just didn't come together. Unless he was in on the joke, maybe that could be the thing.
Or he was directed to act a certain way.
It could be. Yeah. So that is my thought on number 100 Rotten Tomatoes bottom movies of all time. My thought is this movie is a joke. It's the only thing that makes sense.
All right. So are you ready to score them?
Yes, let's do it.
All right.
So yeah, let's go to the Gigli-ometer.
All right.
So for disrespect for the audience's intelligence, I actually think this movie does respect the audience's intelligence.
Okay.
Well, on one level, it's a Nickelodeon movie, so it is made for kids, and so maybe he doesn't respect the kids all that much. Mm-hmm. But I think he was hoping that his adult audience would get the joke.
Okay.
So I'm scoring it a 3 out of 10. I think it's only a 3-level disrespect.
Okay.
Misuse of resources. As I said, this movie cost $150 million.
That's a lot of money.
I can't for the life of me understand where this money has gone. So we're giving that a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, that should be high.
Also the human resources of Dev Patel and M. Night Shyamalan, who are quite skilled Hollywood people. They're totally not doing their best work in this case.
It's a shame.
Yeah, it is a shame. And unpleasantness of viewing experience, that's going to also be a 3. I didn't enjoy this movie, but it was not painful. It was just, I was like, this is silly.
It's what you would expect out of the best of the worst.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. If you're telling me that there are only 99 movies worse than this ever made, I would say that the history of cinema is very rich indeed.
Okay.
But yes, so yeah, it's going to be a 3, a 7, and a 3. We're giving this a 13 on the Gigli-ometer.
Okay, we're adding them together. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, well below the 27 of Gigli.
Gotcha.
So to answer the question, yes, this movie is better than Gigli.
Oh, there it is. And Ken, would it be a pass, pirate, pay?
Yes. This one is a pass.
Pass?
Yes.
I wonder if there's going to be any pirate or pays on this list.
I'm very curious. I can't say I'm excited for this segment because it is going to be torturous for me, I think.
Yeah, but hilarious.
Yeah.
Always hilarious. Also, we should announce that this is a spin-off from Quit Your Day Job Radio.
That
this
is true.
A spin-off segment.
Yes, our friends had a podcast some 10-something years ago called Quit Your Day Job Radio, and on that show, I was brought on to review some truly atrocious media.
Yeah, only truly. They never gave you anything good.
Exactly.
They'd find the worst of the worst.
Yeah, exactly.
And send you out to review it.
Yes, exactly. I did watch the Adam Sandler vehicle Jack and Jill for
That's
that
right.
podcast.
That was great. You did listen to some One Direction?
Yep. These are the things that happened on that podcast. So we're reviving that. Yeah, I hope that this segment is more fun for you, the audience, than it is for me, because I'm out here in the trenches watching this garbage for you.
That's right. You're the brave soldier slogging through the shit.
All right, so moving on, we're going to get away from the Rotten Tomatoes worst movies of all time and get into some other movies. Our first selection of Asian characters losing love is 1994's Chungking Express.
Yes.
Directed by Wong Kar-wai. This movie is about two police officers in Hong Kong. They're two not very interconnected stories. They just kind of happen to take place in the same place, of cops who are dealing with heartbreak. Their girlfriends have just broken up with them, and the way they deal with it, they're just dealing with it in different ways. And that's really it as far as plot goes. This is a very plot light movie.
Yeah.
So the first story is about cop number 223. That's basically all he's known by, and we never see his girlfriend. He's just been dumped by her. And he's very, very heartbroken over it. He's going to these various convenience stores looking for cans of pineapple that are going to expire at the end of the month. And he's got it in his head that if she doesn't come back to him by the end of the month, it's all going to be over with. So he's going through all of the stores that he can find, trying to find pineapples that are going to expire on the day that his love may be expiring.
Right.
And he's just got all of these cans of pineapple. At one point he's interacting with a clerk, and the clerk, do you have any pineapple for the 30th? And he's like, tomorrow's the 30th. Why would I have expired pineapple on my shelves? This just doesn't get it. But he's quite a sad sack. He is just moping about his lost love. And at some point, he winds up in a bar, and he's interacting with this woman who's involved in some nefarious criminal underworld dealings.
Yeah.
She's some sort of drug runner. She's got some kind of thing going where she's got a bunch of Indian guys, and she's going to put them on a plane
to muling
some drugs.
Yeah.
And as she's in the airport putting these guys on the plane, she turns her back, and they're gone. And
with all the drugs
are gone, and now she's going to be dead. So she and cop number 223, they wind up in the same bar together. And this woman, she's played by an actress named Bridget Lin. She's wearing a blonde wig and sunglasses and a trench coat.
Uh-huh.
And she just looks like the coolest person you've ever seen in the world. Like, she's filmed very lovingly, and she seems effortlessly cool. So she's sitting in the bar looking super dope, and the cop is looking like a blubbery sad sack, and he comes up and he's trying to hit on her. He's like, do you like pineapple?
He hits the pineapple stuff really hard.
Real quick, yeah. he doesn't really seem like he's got a lot of moves. No. He also mentions that he likes jogging when he's sad, so that he's going to sweat out all the water from his body so he can't cry anymore. So he also asks the woman in the bar if she likes to jog.
Yeah.
So, he's not the smoothest operator.
No.
But it's just such a contrast between his neediness and patheticness and her just effortless coolness.
Yeah.
And she just doesn't seem to want to have anything to do with it. And he is the worst police officer in the world, it seems like. Like, at one point, they show him like tackling some guy and wrestling him to the ground, and he's like, this is the first person I've arrested in months.
Yeah.
And he meets this woman in the bar, and all he can think to do is try to hit on her, but this horrible criminal enterprise is going on. She's worried about being killed by the people who supplied her with the drugs.
Uh-huh.
And he is not aware of any of it. All he is interested in is trying to get this woman to go out on a date with him.
Right.
Yeah. Eventually she winds up killing the one of the guys who set her up, who was her lover at the time. We see him in a different bar where he's got a different woman that he's a white guy, but he's got a different Chinese woman
and a blonde wig.
Yep, exactly. Same. It seems like the same exact kind of wig. And so she encounters him in a back alley. She plugs him. He's dead. But yeah, the whole thing. We're not really interested in her beyond her being an object of his affection.
Right.
So the subplot, the story ends with the month changing and he just eats his expired pineapple alone in his apartment. And it's just sad. He just winds up being sad. And the way we connect to the other story is he winds up at this food counter. It's called the Midnight Express. I'm not sure why the movie is called Chungking Express. Actually, I've seen it several times, and Chungking Express is not something that's ever said.
Does it mean midnight?
I don't know, actually. But yeah, he's at this lunch counter called the Midnight Express, and the owner of the lunch counter is constantly trying to pimp out all of his employees. So he's like, why don't you ask this woman out for a date? She's nice. Why don't you ask her out? She seems nice. Why keep moping? It's not going to do you any good. And then we see his newest employee, a young woman, trying to be pimped out onto one cop, but the cop is not having it. And then another cop shows up, and the woman at the lunch counter becomes infatuated with him.
Uh-huh.
So the second story is the second cop his girlfriend has also just broken up with him. She was a flight attendant, and he is also kind of heartbroken, but he's not pathetic like the other guy. He's just kind of getting on with his life.
Uh-huh.
And the lunch counter woman, her name's Faye, she decides she's going to break into his apartment and clean it.
Right. Well, she has the keys.
Yeah, she gets the keys because she's delivering something. At one point, he gives her a key to deliver something.
No.
A letter. It was the letter, right?
The letter from the ex.
Yes, that's right. So his ex breaks up with him. His flight attendant ex breaks up with him via a letter. And it winds up at the Midnight Express, tacked onto a bulletin board.
Yeah, she leaves it there and said, next time you see him, give this to him.
Right. So he's not concerned about it. But they're all like, "Oh, we still have that letter for you. We still have that letter for you."
And they steamed it open. And
so everybody at the counter,
the keys.
Everybody at the lunch counter knows what's in the letter.
Yeah,
and the cop who the letter is for doesn't care at all. Yeah, not interested at all. But he's like, "Here's the key to my apartment. If you're in the vicinity, just drop it off there sometime. That'll be fine."
Uh-huh.
So she just goes into his apartment and just starts hanging out there. She's cleaning his floors. She's washing his dishes. She's eating food while she's there. She's just kind of hanging out there.
Yeah.
And at some point, he comes home and she's there. And she's hiding from him. Yeah. And he has this thing where he's talking to all the inanimate objects in his apartment about his ex-girlfriend. He's like, "Oh, Mr. Soap, why are you so sad?"
Yeah.
And things like that.
You're losing weight.
Yeah, the soap is getting worn down. And he's like, "You soap, you need to eat more. You're losing weight." And then she replaces it with a new bar of soap. And he's like, "Soap, you're really letting yourself go." And so, yeah, he is also a terrible police officer, you would think, because he is not noticing that this woman is doing all of these things to his apartment.
No, things in his apartment are being replaced. His sheets are different.
Right. And he's just continuing to pretend as though the inanimate objects are having a life of their own, like Toy Story. Right? Like, yeah, his sheets are different sheets, but he's like, "Oh, you've decided to move on by becoming a different color." But yeah, so eventually he realizes what's going on, that she has been basically stalking him, and he asks her out on a date, and she is very happy, and then she does not show up for the date.
Right.
She becomes a flight attendant herself. She leaves Hong Kong and doesn't return for a year. A year later, he is now the owner of the Midnight Express, and she shows up there, and we're going to see what happens with them. That's the movie ends on an up note where it's like maybe these two crazy kids are going to get together or not. You just don't know. But yeah, so that's the plot. And the plot of this movie, of these two stories, is very much not important to me at all. I know you're a very big on plot person.
Yeah.
And as we talked about with the Terrifier stuff, I think it was mood is so much more important than plot to me.
Uh-huh.
And the mood in this movie is just so cool. Like, Hong Kong just seems like a place I would really want to go hang out based on this movie. And I just really want to hang out with these people. Like, maybe not the sad sack cops, but like Faye, the kooky
You want to hang out with the Korean manic pixie dream girl?
Yeah, she's so like, she seems like it's a lot of fun. The music is hugely important in this movie.
It was kind of weird. I noticed that.
So in
each place, it has its own song. In each character,
it's
like Peter and the Wolf.
Yeah. So in the first movie, whenever the woman in the blonde wig is in a bar, there's this reggae song. It's called "Things in Life," and it's a really cool reggae song. And it sets the mood at the bar every time. Just makes it seem like a lot of that. You're right. It's like Peter and the Wolf. This is how we're supposed to feel when she's on screen. And then
Korean manic pixie dream girl would be portrayed by California Dreamin' by the Mamas and the Papas.
So then in the next section, whenever she's at the lunch counter, she's always listening to the Mamas and the Papas' California Dreamin'.
Right.
And then when she's in his apartment, she's listening to Dreams by the Cranberries.
But it's a Korean version.
Except it's a cover. Yeah, it's Chinese.
It's Chinese?
Yeah, and I actually looked it up. The cover is done by the actress who plays Faye herself.
Oh.
Yeah, so she's actually singing it on the screen.
Which in 1994 would have been a massive hit.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember the first time I saw this movie, I listened to California Dreamin' and Dreams for months afterwards, just over and over again. Like, I was like, man.
Did you see this when it came out?
No, I didn't. So when this movie came out, it came out the same year as Pulp Fiction. And when Pulp Fiction came out, everybody in the world was like, hey, this Quentin Tarantino guy seems like he's seen a lot of movies. Wonder what he thinks about movies. And so there was a huge influx of movies that were from foreign countries that came in as Quentin Tarantino presents. And Chungking Express is one of them.
Oh, this is one of them, huh?
Yeah, when the VHS of this movie came out, it was Quentin Tarantino presents Chungking Express.
Okay.
It was like, everybody should watch this movie because Quentin Tarantino has decided that it's good. And I happen to agree with him.
Just a little side note.
Yeah.
Do you know what other movie Quentin Tarantino thought was good?
What's that?
Joker 2.
Joker Foley, I do.
Did you read his review of it?
I did, yeah.
Because it felt very similar to what you said.
Yeah, he is totally on my corner. This Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
He's, I think he must be a fan of the podcast. Quentin?
He probably is. He probably heard us.
Yep.
And goes, yeah, they're right. And then went on an interview show and forgot that he heard us.
Yeah, exactly. Quentin, I know you're listening, and I'm a big fan of yours too. So it's we have a mutual admiration going on.
I know you're listening.
Yeah, what did you think of this movie?
I don't know if I liked it very much. I just got done watching it a few minutes ago. I don't know why you had to have the two stories. The whole time during the second story, I was waiting for it to somehow circle back and connect, and it never did. And then by the end of it, I was like, oh, this is just a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why do we need to do that? I did like the whole mood of it, though. You're right. Like, I like the whole vibe of it. I think that the acting was pretty good. Like, it felt like a romantic comedy, It felt like a goofy kind of little screwball romantic comedy. It wasn't that heavy.
Yep.
There was some dope and shootings in the first, but even that was kind of light.
Yeah, it's not. It never feels like the woman in the blonde wig it becomes pretty apparent that her life is going to be in danger, but like, she looks scared for exactly 3 seconds in the movie, right?
Yeah.
And then we're just you're like, all right, well, I'm sure it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
We're just not really thinking about it, right? And yeah, you're right. It's a pretty light movie.
But I didn't love it.
Yeah. When Mark suggested this movie, I thought you were not going to like it at all. That was my thought. I just thought that it was too plot light for your sensibilities.
Yeah, I mean, but you're right. Like, in a romantic comedy, like, you watch those for chemistry, you watch those for comedy.
Yeah.
And I didn't think it was terribly light on plot. I think both stories had a plot.
Yeah.
Like, you have this woman running around trying to save herself.
Yeah.
And then this guy trying to get laid, and those paths converging.
Right.
Like, that was something, And the second one, where she's infatuated and she's in his apartment and he doesn't know, and the back and forth between that was a plot. That was fun to watch, So there was definitely, a journey that you took that I could appreciate. I just didn't know why we needed the two stories. Like,
yeah. I think the movie is less about the characters than it is about the idea, right? Like, he seems like he just wants to this is what it looks like when someone is too busy wallowing over lost love to be able to experience new love. You know, like, because that's what both the cops should be doing.
Yeah.
Like, if the stupid cop in the first part weren't so pathetically hung up on his last girlfriend, he would actually be able to do something with the woman in the blonde wig.
Yeah, he wouldn't have been talking about pineapples and jogging. Yeah,
and maybe if the cop in the second movie had not been so blind about thinking about his stewardess girlfriend, he would be able to realize a lot quicker that Faye was stalking him and be like, hey, she's actually pretty cool, right? It just seems like the idea is more important than the people. The people are just there to illustrate the idea.
Okay.
That's what it seemed like to me. That's the way I look at it.
That's fine. So is that all, Ken?
Yeah, that's all I got for this one.
What would be your recommendation on this? Would it be pass, pirate, or pay?
Well, so this one is definitely a pay for me.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I'm probably a pirate.
Okay.
Probably a pirate.
Okay.
It was not my favorite. What was it? Hong Kong it was
it's
from?
Hong Kong, yep.
Because I thought these were all Korean movies.
No, yeah, this one is Hong Kong. Yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised actually. When I would have bet you were a pass on this one before we had our conversation.
Well, I am full of surprises.
I like it.
All right.
Okay. Our final movie this episode is 2023's Past Lives. It's directed by Celine Song. It is the story of two people, Nora and Hae Sung. The movie starts, they're 12 years old in Seoul, South Korea, and they're like in young love. They're kids, they're 12-year-old kids in 12-year-old kid love. But then Nora's parents make the decision that they're going to move to Canada, and the kids are split up. So yeah, we get a very brief period of their life in Seoul, and they go on a date. They're just two kids very adorably holding hands in a park, playing around on this little silver statue. But then Nora's family moves across the world, and they're gone.
And this would be in what, like 2001?
Yeah,
2002?
So yeah, the movie takes place in 3 different timelines, and they're all 12 years apart.
Okay.
So I assume the first one is like 1999-ish.
Okay.
So abruptly, as soon as Nora's family arrives in Toronto, we get a graphic on the screen. It says 12 years later. And now Nora is a young adult, and we see her talking to her mom on the phone. She's now moved to New York City, and she's looking up people that they used to know in Korea. And she's like, "Oh, what was that boy?
Like
Hae-sung."
on MySpace or Facebook,
yeah,
or something.
whatever it would have been. Yeah, Hae-sung. Remember, I went on that date with him. I wonder what he's up to. Nora's father is a filmmaker, and on the Facebook page of his latest movie, there's a message from Hae-sung trying to find her. So eventually, they reconnect and they just start video chatting.
Yeah.
And they video chat for a little while. And initially, it's a little tentative and awkward. And it's like, oh, we used to be so cute together and whatever. And then, but they pretty quickly like really reconnect with each other. And it seems like, these people are old friends and they just pick it right back up again. And we see time passing through kind of montagey thing of them video chatting more and more and more. But eventually they're on entirely different continents. They're really far away. The time difference is immense. And Nora decides that she's come all this way. She moved from Korea. Now she moved to New York from Canada. And she really just needs to focus on being in New York. So she tells Hae-sung, I can't do this anymore. We got to stop chatting for a little while. Pretty quickly after that, it's 12 years later again.
Yeah.
And we find out that Hae-sung is going to take a visit to New York. Nora is now married. She met an American at a writer's retreat on Long Island. They live together in New York. She's married to him. They seem to be very happy. And Hae-sung is coming to take a visit to New York. Quickly, we realize that the reason he's coming is because he is still in love with Nora and they want to reconnect. And then the final, about basically half of the movie, is the two of them reconnecting in New York, and then the two of them with Nora's husband having a very awkward encounter together. And yeah, and we just realize what's going to happen with these people. Are they meant to be together, or are they not? Right. So again, yeah, that's basically the entire plot of the movie. So the movie opens with a scene from the third section where Nora and Hae-sung are in the bar and Nora's husband is sitting on the other side of her.
Yeah.
And there's a conversation happening away from them at the bar for people we don't see. We're like, what's going on with those people? I think that the woman is married to the white guy and the Asian guy is her brother. Like, no. I think that they're on vacation and he's their translator. Like, but they're in a bar at 4:00 in the afternoon. What does that make sense? But then later on, when we see the scene, we realize that like it's these two very old acquaintances and they're having a conversation. And the reason why it looks like they're not really talking to the white dude is because Hae-sung speaks almost no English. So they're having to have this conversation in Korean. And he's just, and her husband, Arthur, is just sitting there at the bar listening to his wife talk to this handsome Korean man in Korean, having no idea what's going on. And it's very awkward. But yeah, so I want to do something we haven't done before. I want to read a quote, a pretty extended quote from the movie, because I think it does a really good job of illustrating what the movie is going for. Okay. So pretty soon after Nora meets her soon-to-be husband, this is in the second timeline, or a little after the second timeline, I guess. She has a conversation with him, and she says this. She says, "There's a word in Korean, inyeon. It means providence or fate, but it's specifically about relationships between people. I think it comes from Buddhism and reincarnation, and it's inyeon if two strangers even walk by each other in the street and their clothes accidentally brush, because it means there must have been something between them in their past lives. If two people get married, they say it's because there have been 8,000 layers of inyeon over 8,000 lifetimes." And her husband's like, "Do you really believe that?" And she basically says, "No, that's pretty much something that Koreans say just to get laid." But this idea of inyeon and past lives is basically the entire theme of the movie, right? And it uses past lives in two different senses, right? Like past lives in the Buddhist sense, where she and her husband are talking about, like, they have this inyeon. They're married now, so they must have these. Do they have the 8,000 lifetimes that passed between them beforehand? And now that they're in this lifetime, they're meant to be together? Or are she and Hae-sung? Did they have what's with their inyeon? How many past lives have they gone through? And at one point, he's like, "What if this is just one of our past lives, and in the future, we're going to be married, and this is one of the 8,000 times before that?" And we're just constantly talking about that. But in the other sense, we all have past lives within our lives, right? Like her past life is when she was a kid in Korea, and that's when she knew Hae-sung. And he never left that life. So he is still fixated on her. But she doesn't spend a whole lot of time thinking about him because that was a previous life. And that's really real to me, right? Because I'm thinking about myself, and I moved here from New York. I moved here to Vegas 19 years ago. And New York just seems like another lifetime for me ago. You know what I mean? Like if I were to encounter somebody that I knew when I was 21 years old living in New York, it's like I'm just a totally different person now. I would have no idea how to relate to those people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think the movie is getting at that two senses of past lives. And it just does it in like a really beautiful and poetic way. This movie is really deliberately paced. Like there's a lot of really slow tracking shots of just people walking around having conversations. It reminded me, there are a bunch of shots when Hae-sung first gets to New York. There are a bunch of shots of the two of them where they're a very small part of the frame walking through New York, and most of the frame is just taken up with an image of New York.
Yeah.
Like, bridges in the background or buildings or the river or anything. And it just looks really great. It reminded me of like the very best Woody Allen movies.
I was gonna say that too.
Yeah, like that's my first thought when I watched this movie. It was like, man, this movie, it reminds me of Manhattan or Annie Hall or just like these fantastic Woody Allen movies. And I think Celine Song's sense of pace is masterful. Like she doesn't rush anything. the movie jumps pretty quickly between timelines, but while you're in a scene, every scene takes its time and is allowed to play out in these great ways. There's a scene after Nora and Hae-sung meet up for the first time in New York. She goes home and she's talking to her husband, and he starts talking to her about how great a story it would be if she and Hae-sung got together. And it's like their life and their marriage together is so boring because their marriage was like done out of convenience. Like she got married to him earlier. She says they got married earlier than they normally would have because she wanted to get a green card because he's an American citizen. So their life is just so boring when you compare it to this story, this love story that could be told of her reconnecting with her childhood sweetheart, that they only see each other, they've only interacted every 12 years apart. And it's just like, this is the most romantic story, and reality sucks compared to that. She's just like, but you're forgetting the fact that like I actually love you and I don't love him, right? It's just like sometimes reality is a lot less interesting than the storybook version, but at the same time, it has the advantage of being real. And I just thought it was so beautiful. Yeah, I don't know. I just love it. This movie I just watched before we started recording. I finished watching it about an hour before we started recording today.
And you had not seen it?
No, I had seen it once before.
Yeah, I thought you had.
Yeah, and I was watching it, and it's just one of those movies that it just kind of like washes over me, and I feel like I'm 100% on board with what the director was trying to do, and it just worked. Everything she was trying to do just worked on me, and I really love it.
Spoiler warning. Spoilers ahead. Skip to the next chapter or minute marker 51:11 to hear the verdict. You have been warned.
So the scene in the bar that we see a glimpse of at the very beginning with the three of them, when it happens the second time, when we're actually able to see what's going on with them, we see this connection that Nora and Hae-sung have, and the camera just keeps cutting back every once in a while to her husband, and he's looking worried, annoyed, like, this guy with my wife. And we've already had the conversation about what a great story he thinks it would be if she left him for the other guy. And so it seems like there's a question. It's just like, what's going to happen between these two? But the movie ends where it's just like, she walks him out and puts him in an Uber. They have a little hug. He gets in the Uber, goes away, and she walks back, and her husband's standing right outside their apartment, and they hug, and she starts crying. But at the same time, she's crying in her husband's arms. And it seems to me like she's kind of thinking about the things that he was talking about, is like, man, life is weird. Reality is boring but wonderful, and the storybook would be wonderful but ridiculous. And it just kind of gets to her, and she just starts crying. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's so well done. It's just such a great ending to this story, because the movie's not really doing big things. It's just doing small things, and it's doing the small things really well. And I think the three lead performances are all just fantastic. I think Tae-oh Yoo, who plays Hae-sung in particular, is so good. And I've never seen him before. I think his character's English is bad because I'm guessing the actor probably doesn't speak much English, because Nora is played by Greta Lee, who is a Korean American actress, so her English is perfect, but his English is not there. So almost all of his scenes are in Korean, but his face is so expressive. The scene where she tells him in the middle period that she never wants to talk, or she doesn't want to talk to him again for a while, like he's just there on the verge of tears and like doesn't know what to do with himself, and his face is just so perfect in that scene. I just kind of loved it. Yeah, I don't know. What did you think?
I couldn't disagree more.
Yeah.
I did not like this movie.
Wow.
I think all the things that you loved about it, I didn't see. I thought the acting was deadpan throughout most of it.
Wow.
I didn't think the acting was, it was very just deadpan. Like there was no emotion. I saw very little subtle glimpses of emotion.
Oh,
and the only time I really saw was at the end when she started crying in his arms.
The scene where they first meet up in New York and she gives him like a really long, affectionate hug, and he has no idea that this is coming. Like you could tell he's not expecting it, so he's not even hugging her back at first. It's like I just thought their faces were doing so much work there. I thought it was great.
No, I didn't.
Wow,
I didn't see it.
That's wow.
I'm like, this is a love story without any love or joy. It's like a Woody Allen movie with no love or joy.
Oh wow.
And I didn't see any of that. I saw they were trying for it. I thought the dialogue was bad. I thought that when they were talking to each other, do you have a girlfriend? Oh, I had a girlfriend. And they're just these deadpan lines.
I think the dialogue is so good.
And one thing you mentioned that I really hate about Oscar bait movies is long shots of nothing. Long shots of a wall or wind blowing, and it's always it always bugs me.
But this
never makes sense.
There was no long shots of nothing.
There was long shots of a
people.
bunch of stuff. You mentioned it, long tracking shots.
But it's the people in the shots.
But there were also like.
But the characters are in the shots that they're tracking. Like
some of those, fine, but like you could tell there was just like it was really slow paced.
It was really slow paced,
and maybe that was deliberate, and that's fine. I just found it insanely boring. I thought that movie was insanely boring. And like, I get that she was talking about like, you know, that girl that's not me anymore.
Yeah.
And that was the whole past lives thing. I'm like, okay. I did not like it. I didn't like it.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I understand not liking it. I that's understandable, but like not thinking that the acting is good or that the dialogue is good, that's really bananas to me. I think this is one of the best written movies I've seen in a long, long time.
Oh, not me. It felt like to me it was written by a middle schooler.
It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Wow. All right. That, yeah. All right. You are full of surprises.
All right. Yeah. So for past lives, is it a pass, pirate, or pay?
This is a huge, huge pay for me. This is like, I can honestly say this is one of my favorite movies of this last decade. I love this movie.
Yeah. And it's a hard pass for me.
Wow. Well, all right.
So there it is.